Booktube, this is Becky from Becky Writes, and this is Becky Reads, and this is my Uprooted review and a book chat. Uprooted is the story of 17-year-old Agnieszka. She's from a small town that borders on the wood, a dark, evil, magical place that snatches people and kills them and has its own life. There's a lot of evil in the enchanted wood that is just beyond her village. When Agnieszka is 17 at the annual harvest festival, it is she and not her best friend Kasia who is picked to be the servant of the dragon, the wizard that protects her village from the evil wood. Everyone expects for it to be Kasia that is chosen, but it is Agnieszka, and as she lives with the dragon in his tower, she uncovers that there is a much bigger, broader issue going on than what she has always known as a child growing up on the edge of the wood. This is a fairy tale, but it is not a direct retelling of any fairy tale. It is inspired by several different ones. You'll feel hints of Beauty and the Beast, and you will feel hints of Cinderella, and I know that there are some Polish fairy tales that inspired Naomi Novik as she was writing this. I gave this 5 stars. I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful read. This book centers a lot around the friendship between Agnieszka and her best friend Kasia, and what it means to be strong, and what it means to love, and what it means to care for a community. Patrick Rothfuss, who is known for writing the Kingkiller Chronicles, wrote a blurb for this that I think is really perfect. I didn't know how much I wanted to read a book like this until it was already in my hands. That's true. I didn't realize until I read this book how much I was craving a book that is so female-focused in the best way. The characters are real and dynamic. They're not just girls that are very masculine. They're girls that are feminine, and they're girls that are struggling in a world in which girls are kind of seen as second-class citizens. And they are girls who are coming of age and who are dealing with all the things that a 17-year-old would deal with on top of this crazy situation with an evil wood and some political drama going on, and with Agnieszka being taken away from her family, she thinks, for 10 years, and sort of losing her connection to the community. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and what is great about it is the imaginative world, the characters are compelling, the pacing is spot on in my opinion. I had no idea where this was going. Another benefit of this book is that there are some, I wouldn't even call them plot twists necessarily, but where this book goes is not where you expect it to go in the beginning, and that means it is a great ride. You just can't anticipate it. I didn't anticipate anything in this book, and it was a refreshing read because of that. The downsides, I think that some people are frustrated there's not more of a romance. The romance is second or even third priority in this book, and I could see we're wanting a little bit more of the romance to blossom. I can understand that. I was satisfied, but I would have been happy with a little bit more as well. And I do think towards the end, the female friendship takes a little bit of a backseat. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more between Agnieszka and Kasia. The last third of the book, Kasia does seem to be relegated as a very much a side character. But again, overall, I gave this 5 stars. All right, now everything is spoilery. This is not the review. If you are watching this and you haven't read it, here be spoilers. After this point, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. You've been warned. Spoilers. I've absolutely loved Uprooted. I read this as my very first buddy read with my friend Caitlin, and we both absolutely loved this book. It was so much fun. We would read it and one of us would get a little bit ahead and we'd text the other one, where are you at? Have you gotten, how's it going? What do you think of this thing? And it was just this great adventure read. It is definitely a fairy tale, but it is inventive and it's fresh, and I really, really appreciated it for that. As you can tell, there's a lot that I appreciated in here, a lot of insights about life. I think one of the things that has drawn me most to this book is I think that this is one of the most feminist books I have read all year. And I want to qualify that because a lot of people assume feminism is just girls kicking butt and taking names, and girls inhabiting the space that men usually inhabit. And that isn't feminism to me. Feminism is women behaving like women, however they want that to be, and still being able to achieve certain ends. And the fact that women generally do things in in a conciliatory manner. Women generally aren't out to dominate, they are not out to steamroll, they're not out to coerce, but instead are a more reconciling nature, right? Men are portrayed as the big strong ones who get their way through force. Women are portrayed as the ones who get their way through, you could say conniving, but I would think of it more as reconciliation and working in community. That is a part of feminism, right? That we approach things in a different way than the patriarchal take what you want and, use as much force as possible. And I think that this book does such a great job of showcasing those two very different ways of approaching solving a problem. Prince Merrick is so patriarchal, it's unbelievable. From the beginning where he assaults Agnieszka thinking that because she's a lowly servant, the dragon won't mind if he rapes her, essentially. And she's just like, heck no, leave me alone. And the way that he forces the dragon and he forces Agnieszka to help him retrieve his mother from the wood after Agnieszka saves Kasia, the way that he just decides that force is the only way through the problem, that there is no other way of dealing with the problem but using force. I think that parallels really strongly with Agnieszka, who, when she goes into the heart of the woods, when she is leading, Sarkhan, the dragon, through into the end, she doesn't want to use force. She wants to work with the situation. I think one of the most poignant moments towards the end of the book that shows why this is so feminist. So Agnieszka and Sarkhan are in the heart of the woods and they've seen the Wood Queen and she hates her, right? She hates what this Wood Queen has done. She's seen all this violence. She's seen what the Wood Queen is capable of and she hates her. And she says, I hated her. I wanted her to burn the way so many of the corrupted had burned because she'd put her hold on them. But wanting cruelty felt like another wrong answer in an endless chain. I love that, and I think that Agnieszka's realization that force doesn't always get the desired end and that force can lead to cycles of vengeance and revenge is such a great feminist way of talking about violence and the ways that traditionally men, and I want to say men as in the patriarchal society, approaches a problem and the way that women approach problems. So I just loved everything about that. I love that the main relationship you care about in this book is Agnieszka and Kasia. I love that female friendship is what is so important, that it is Agnieszka's care for Kasia that has her go back to her village to save her from the heart tree, to try all these things to rid corruption from the wood. And I love that when Luth's summoning spills over them, they have to address all of their secret hurts. I think any women who've had friendships know that we all harbor secret hurts and grudges and jealousies and anger and towards our female friends, and that to face that is, it's just, you don't want to admit that you have those hurts. You don't want to admit that you're jealous of your friends, and to have that wash over you, to know that they have those hurts toward you, that you have those hurts toward them, and then to be able to walk through that in friendship still. I think that is a really powerful scene in Uprooted, and is another reason I just love this book so much, because it is about truth and friendship and what makes truth and what makes a good life. I love the contrast between Sarkhan the dragon and Agnieszka. His magic is rehearsed, it's educated, it's step by step, it's this very analytical, almost scientific approach to magic, and the very stereotypically masculine approach, right? That there is order and the order must be followed and therefore you'll get these results. And Agnieszka is so different. Hers is almost like a kitchen witchery kind of magic, right? It's pulling things together and feeling your way through. It's intuitive and not necessarily intellectual, and they are the stereotypes of femininity and masculinity, and they play out so well in how the magic systems work for Agnieszka and for Sarkhan. The fact that Agnieszka didn't want a name, that for her she just took the name she already had, because for her the power of a new name wasn't what was important, and for her the magic that gave that power wasn't what the magic that enlivened her and gave her life. I think that is just so, it's so great. It's such a great layer, and I just am so appreciative that that kind of layering is presented in YA, because I think so often when we think of feminist characters, we think of girls who just behave like boys. We think of girls who are assassins or who are, swordswomen or whatever. And while I'm glad to see that, they often are stripped of the things that make women stereotypically make women female, right? That women tend to be communal and women tend to be more gentle in spirit, and that women tend to seek power in very different ways. I loved seeing these traditional roles of men and women laid out and not having one as weak and one as strong, but them as different complementary forces. So the way that her magic can envelop and undergird and wrap around the magic of Sarkhan, not stifling it, not even mirroring it, but being its own thing that can empower it and make it better. Again, this is why I think this is such a feminist book. Another thing I really liked about this is at the end, when they finally were able to sort of destroy the wood, it was a communal effort. You know, this wasn't Agnieszka taking a sword and running into the woods and slaying the evil wood queen. This was Agnieszka working within her community to protect the royal children, to push back the wood, to save as many people as she could, to use Sarkhan and to use the community that she knew to solve this problem and to recognize that this problem was real. I love the end. Her willingness to be vulnerable, to embrace the fact that yes, her roots do run deep and she is a channel to the wood and this is her home and she cares about it enough to put herself at risk matters. And it's such a great contrast between Sarkhan, who is very extreme, right? Like, he is an extreme representation of a certain way of inhabiting masculinity, and she is a representation of inhabiting femininity, and I just loved them. I also love that you have Cassia, right? Like, Cassia is hard, and she's strong, and she is that kick-butt female, and she does pick up the sword and fight, and she is all about don't mess with her friend, and I would have liked to have seen more of Cassia. I think that is a drawback of this. I really wanted to see more of Cassia, and I wanted to see their friendship more, and that was kind of put on the back burner in the last third of this book. This book just surprised me. I would not have guessed that this book I would feel like is such a feminist fairy tale, but I do. I think that this book really speaks to what it means to be a woman, right? Like, it doesn't mean, hey, you should be stronger and be more masculine. I think that there's a stereotype about feminists that feminists are more masculine, right? That feminists want to be dudes or behave like dudes. I have zero interest in that. I am a feminist, card-carrying feminist. It's not a dirty word. And I don't want to be a guy. I don't want to become hard or less emotional because that's what's expected of me if I am going to be in a leadership position or if I am going to be playing with the boys. And I love that Agnieszka isn't that Agnieszka stays who she is. She grows and she becomes wiser and stronger and more resolved in her own spirit and her own identity, but she doesn't become masculine. And I do think that that is a trope in YA that I have been reading, is that when young women want to grow and become stronger, that is depicted as them becoming more masculine and less emotional, and I think that that is a flaw, and that is why I like Uprooted, because that's not what happens here. I mean, I think that it is a reminder that feminism is often misconstrued, that we think of feminism as just women behaving like men, but in fact, it's honoring the fact that what women have to say and how women inhabit the world is valuable and not second class. This is one of the quotes that I most loved about Agnieszka, where I think she was coming into her own and she was confronting the dragon. I think that this really shows kind of her perception and her wit and her wisdom. So you take the ones like Cassia, I burst out, the ones brave enough to bear it, who won't hurt their families worse by weeping, and you suppose that makes it right. You don't rape them. You only close them up for 10 years and complain that we think you worse than you are. I just love that, man. She's like dropping a truth bomb. She does that in different places where she sees this moment and she has these insights of like, are you kidding? What are you doing? Here's another one from a little bit earlier in the book. This is her arguing with the dragon because her magic is very different. She's like, has the wandering through the woods, intuitive magic, and he has the very precise magic. He yells at her, there are no hedges, right? She's saying that she's wandering through the hedges, and she yells back, it comes, I suppose, I said thoughtfully, speaking to the air, of spending too much time alone indoors and forgetting that living things don't always stay where you put them. Ah, I love it. I mean, it's just these sharp insights that Agnieszka has, that she is from such a different world than the dragon, and she is showing him a different way of being. I will say at the very end, I really wanted them to like have a moment, like more than when we were given. I would have loved for her to have like embarrassed him completely by kissing him on the cheek or pulling him into a kiss or something. Even though, you know, he would have been mortified, I still would have loved to have seen that. And I do love that they stay who they are. He doesn't become a soft, gooey guy because he has feelings for Agnieszka. And Agnieszka doesn't like become this gooey, oh my god, I love him and I can't live without him kind of person because she's in love with Sarkhan. I could really go on about this book for the next hour, but I am going to kind of reel it in and ask you guys some questions. What did you think of this? Was Uprooted one of your 5-star reads? It certainly was for me. I know that some people didn't like it, so I'd be curious if you didn't like it, what you think. But if you did, what were your favorite parts? What were your favorite moments? What were the things that stood out for you? If you are a reader of fairy tales, like I am, I love fairy tale retellings. What did you think of this one? Because it's not a straight retelling, and I do think some people were disappointed by that. So what did you think of this one? I think this could have gone a very different way. This could have been sort of Beauty and the Beast style, and it didn't go that way. And I think I could see where people were a little bit angry about that. I knew that it wasn't going to be a straight retelling. I knew it wasn't going to be a Beauty and the Beast story because of BookTube, so I didn't have that disappointment, but I can see where you might think that. So what did you guys think of the fairy tale qualities? And ultimately, because this is where my heart is, what did you think about the women of the story? Kasia and Agnieszka, their friendship, the Willow and Alosha, and just the other characters, and the queen, right? The Wood Queen, who is an interesting character, and the whole Wood people, who are interesting characters. This book could also be a huge book about ecology, right? And how if we destroy our environment, it's gonna come back and haunt us real bad. But I'm not gonna get into that because again, I could talk about this for an hour. I loved Uprooted, and I really hope those of you who read it enjoyed it, and I really wanna talk to more folks about it. Right now I only have one friend who's read it, and we've talked about it. We had a FaceTime, it was great, but there's more to say. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed Uprooted. And if you happen to have watched this without reading it, go read it, and then let me know what you think. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!